Welcome back. You are listening to the Mari Mukwanda Show on Salam Media. There was a time when teachers would teach the way they had learned with little regard to the needs of the student. The world changed when Howard Gardner and others came along and turned education on its head by promoting um, eh, the angle teacher model, rather. Education is now about empowering the learner, not just through style, but also through access. Joining me right now is Dr. Ken Resnick, who is an educational psychologist and founder of the Smart Choice Parenting Program. Good morning, Dr. Ken.
Morning, how are you?
Good, thanks. On yourself?
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining me this morning. All right, so Dr. Ken, what is the purpose of education? Let's start there.
That's a very good question. The purpose of education is equipping kids with the skills to take on life. In other words, the adult, the educator, which is the parent, the teacher, equips children with skills to take on the challenges of life. In other words, their confidence, their passion. They're born with passion, sense of curiosity. They're born with a brain. They're born to learn. But it's totally up to the adult, the educator, to fulfill that. And if you think about it, the parents and teachers are the educators, but they hardly talk to each other.
And things have changed quite a bit, especially with the technology and the rise in artificial intelligence. So, how has education evolved since its inception?
Look, obviously it has evolved a lot, but I think what is missing is the actual fact that these are little human beings we've got to bring up. And what is happening with education evolving, we are really tending to mollycoddle kids and keep them safe without understanding that the passion and the grit they need to succeed in life, no matter what the education is, needs to be instilled. So what is tending to happen with all the technology, there are all these TV games and devices that kids are becoming addicted to. And unless the parents are able to instill a sense of children wanting to learn, getting value out of what they learn, I mean, they're born to learn. Then, of course, whatever the educational techniques are, we're going to have issues, which I think COVID has proved that, because of this huge gap. And there's some kids that are fallen so far behind, not because they don't have a brain, because they just don't want to. You know, so that is, education is changing without understanding how do we instill the need or the urge or the motivation for children to want to learn, especially in this new dispensation or this new world of technology where they just want to play games rather than learn.
And that's what we're seeing a lot these days. And kids younger and younger just would rather be on their devices than socialize, than learn something, than even just read a book. So why is it necessary for parents to understand the changes and evolve with them? You know, sometimes we see our kids with these devices, we buy it for them, we buy the devices for them, but we don't want to evolve and cope with those changes. We just feel like, you know what, I don't really know what's going on, but it's fine as long as my child knows, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think nobody's educating parents, and that's a real tragedy. And we're sitting with a huge pool of kids that are just got attitude. They feel they're entitled. They're not doing well at school. A lot of them are in all different sorts of therapy, being assessed. Parents are not being given any tools how to deal with this. But at the end of the day, we are breeding kids, and there's been quite a lot of research done now in the States. There's a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. That they found that kids born from 2005, for instance, as they become teenagers, the increase in girls' suicide is about 70%. With boys, it's 25%, because these kids don't have joy. They need to be entertained. If they're not entertained, they don't know what to do with themselves. And then they have attitude. And research has shown the danger of these games. They genuinely become addicted. If they're watching too much, their health suffers because a lot of them become obese, sugar problems, attitude problems towards their parents, where with some of these games, you're not allowed to interrupt them. So they'd much rather play games and learn. or read. So the thing is, how do we help kids give meaning to reading? Because that's what it's all about. What they miss is, why do so many kids not enjoy school? Ideally, or learning even. They're choosing not to learn. But why? So nobody's investigating that. Because I genuinely believe every child that feels good about himself, that's self-motivated, can learn and can do well and actually pass well. But kids that are failing, they're actually choosing to go because they're not interested in learning. It's quite an interesting dynamic there.
All right. So, how can parents polish up their parenting skills and to encourage kids to learn to read and to motivate them into the right direction?
Well, they've got to have rules and structures, and they've got to teach them manners. Kids don't even have manners today. Kids have got attitude. They hang around far too much with adults. They're not being properly socialized. Human beings are supposed to attach. They should have friends. With these games, kids don't have to have friends anymore. So the natural tendency for human beings is to attach to other human beings. So we've got to make sure kids are socialized. We've got to make sure that we encourage them to get into competitive situations so that if they lose, they can pick themselves up and try harder rather than just give up and need somebody to always be there to help them. So, and nobody's actually helping the parents understand that, and least of all the teachers.